So it's not a surprise to anybody, including myself, that I'm definitely thoroughly fascinated with Germany as a country and the language as well. So I've been learning German for the last few years, and it's casual. It's kind of rusty because I haven't been practicing very recently, like I did last year or the year before that. But I still have retained a lot of knowledge. Today, we're going to be diving into a woman who learned German in 6 months, and it sounds pretty good. And there's some tips here and whatnot. If you guys have tips of your own, let me know. It'll help me improve on my speaking and understanding and whatnot. A lot of you guys have said things like watching movies and TV shows and literally speaking with people in Discord or wherever you can will help improve. So let's see what she did and go from there.
Elegant so that I could look smart. Hope you appreciate. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I learned German in 6 months. So I went from knowing just the basics, just a few words, a few expressions, the numbers, the colors, how to introduce myself and saying things like my name and how old I am and things like that, to actually have a proper conversation with someone. Either it was formal or informal, so small talk or maybe a job interview. Then I was able in 6 months to read and write formal letters.
That's huge. That's huge. Read and write formal letters. That's impressive.
To comprehend podcasts, videos, TV shows, to read books, and understanding in general, the German language. So I will tell you all the resources and the things that I used to just learn this language in such a little time. And I know German is a pretty difficult language. But the first thing that I would like to say is that you have to have motivation.
Yes, absolutely. My motivation was the fact that I had an influx of subscribers from Germany, and I'm like, you know what? I'll learn the language. And then we're here. I've been doing this for a while, so I've enjoyed every step of the way. You guys will see me make some of the same mistakes always, or at least for a long period of time until it's completely weeded out. But absolutely, it's there. It's fun. It's enjoyable. The thing that made learning a new language not enjoyable was being forced to do it in high school or elementary school and whatnot. And a lot of you guys can relate. There are languages that you're mandated to take, or you have to take a language, some kind of language, and you're like, I don't want to really learn this. So you kind of, dilly-dally, and you don't do as good as you should. So the languages that you're genuinely interested in learning, you do really well at, because even though the language itself is hard, you have the motivation to keep going.
When you focus on the motivation and the reason why you're doing this, you're learning a new language or German in particular, then it becomes easier to stay focused. My advice would be to have a schedule, and so to tell yourself, okay, so this is what I'm going to do and how much per day. I would recommend to be consistent and to do that almost every day. That's what I did. And then just to change the method. Do not always use the same book and the same, podcast.
Or you'll wind up in the situation that I'm currently in, where you do know a few things very well, but you haven't really expanded your knowledge to a point where you're versatile. Now, there are a lot of things that I still remember, but like I said, because I kind of dabbled in the same area, my knowledge is limited. It's still good enough to carry a conversation with people, but not great enough to have it be a thorough conversation, if that makes sense.
So whatever, change the way you study the language, otherwise it will be so boring and you will lose motivation.
Yeah.
So first of all, I was a little bit overwhelmed and I was like, I don't know, I have to learn the language in such a short period of time, and I want something that really helps me and introduces me to the language. So I found this on internet. Can you see it? So this is a book which contains the most important, grammar rules and expressions and things about German from the level A1 to B2. For
cool.
Those who are not familiar with studying a foreign language, when you study any kind of language, every language has levels. A1 and A2 will be the basic levels, so you know a little bit about the language, but you cannot actually have a proper conversation. B1 and B2, you're good. You're getting really good at the language. C1 and C2, you are advanced and proficient.
I think at the peak of like me learning German and speaking it and understanding it and whatnot, I say I was like a B1 entering B2 territory. You know, now I'd say I've regressed to like A2 to B1 territory, probably more B1, definitely like A2 to B1, between an A2 and a B1, because I have forgotten a lot of stuff. So I'll say A2 right now, currently. What would you guys rate me from what you guys have seen recently? I haven't really done too many videos where I'm speaking German. Matter of fact, I only did one and it sounded horrible. So actually, y'all can go ahead and knock me down to A1.
Here I had an introduction to everything, and there are a lot of dialogues, and then they are translated in my language. My mother language is Italian. Hi, I'm Italian. And there are just a few exercises each chapter. I finished this in a month and a half. It is a really long book. It has 600 pages. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's some kind of version in your language, and then so your native language and German, but they have several books like this, like for example, Italian to English, Spanish to German. So they're really mixed up. So maybe you will find what is, you know, the perfect book for you. And when I got used a little bit to the language, then I switched to harder books. So the harder books that I used are the grammar ones. So I bought one that it was in Italian, so Italian and German. I didn't finish it all, but there are a lot of grammar rules. It is complicated, but it helped me to understand a little bit more about the logic of the language. Then cool. I have all of these books that are typical books that you use at school. Some of them were recommended by the school I went to. It was really good that I could, you know, participate in these group lessons. So they are quite expensive. That's why I bought at the beginning this one, because I was like,
well, I can tell you right now that, I mean, a lot of reading obviously goes into this. A lot of different mediums to learn in general obviously goes in this as well. For example, I used the notorious Duolingo. I used Babbel. I used Discord. I used, different little servers and stuff like that. I watched a lot of YouTube videos in German, listened to music in German, watched movies in German with subtitles, tried to read children's books in German, the whole shebang. And it helps having a method to keep the language learning process fresh. That's what's most important, I feel like, when it comes to something like this. And it doesn't only apply to German, but it applies to any new language you're learning. Something that allows you to get something new out of it that will get the information to stick. You're not going to get it the first time, a lot of times, but you will be motivated to come back to it if it's a fun process. I've even played games on the internet that were German games. You know, there's a website that does like quizzes and stuff on, you know, different words. I've done like little German quizzes. I've done like, you know, just a bunch of like random things, like even like playing GeoGuessr for Germany and stuff like that, and kind of clicking around and figuring out what location is which based on the signs that were around, which were in, go figure, mostly German. It's cool. What she's doing is like a variation of what I've done, you know, and there could be some new methods that you guys have discovered over the last year or so, or like, you know, the last few years that you can like kind of throw my way. But how she's doing it is, I feel like how most people should do it. But everybody learns differently. So who am I to say that?
Like, I'm not gonna take lessons to learn, you know, the first levels of German so that I could reach those levels, you know, A1, A2, because I'm just going to spend a couple of thousands francs. It was not worth it, and it was such a huge amount of money. Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to reach the first levels by myself, but it was hard, definitely. And then I enrolled, so I participated to this B1 class, and yeah, sometimes it was hard, sometimes it was not. It was easier. I mean, it was fun also because we did a lot of group activities and stuff like that. And I finished that, and it was an intensive course. So really every day and in a month, and I improved a lot. Then I started working, and so that actually helped a little bit, but I still felt lost. So I had to keep studying the language at home. So I bought, other books. And
my gosh. Out of everybody I've seen learn this language, this is the first video I've seen where she in particular has gone through so many variations of books. I think that's very important because, I mean, like reading it, it's like active learning. Like you read it, you like write in that language, and it sticks a lot more so than like kind of just glancing over something online probably. I mean, like I said, different strokes for different folks, different methods of retaining information, but this seems pretty effective for German in particular.
Started doing everything by my own. Then I enrolled myself in another course, and I took those lessons, but then Corona came, and so I had to keep doing everything online, and I had just a few private lessons, and that helped a lot, but I did everything at home. So I studied a lot, and then I just asked questions about things that I didn't know, because the only way to save money when you want to learn something is to study everything by yourself. Just write down the questions you have. Once you've noticed that you don't understand something, you can just ask, but not that you have to go through every single chapter with a teacher, because it's too expensive. I have like a list of things so that I don't forget something. Of course, I use those, really famous language apps. For example, Duolingo, Reverso.
Like we were saying. Yeah. So she's gone to the max. She literally maxed out almost every method to learn the language. She went to school for the language. She talks about how she learned A1 through A2 by simply doing the research herself, buying books and relentlessly day in, day out, quizzing herself and reading chapters and stuff and applying it. And then she, enrolled herself in school for B1, B2 level German, and wound up excelling with that. She's used these apps she's listing here. I'm pretty sure she's mentioned already how she's kind of included this in her personal life as well. But bro, this is impressive.
So it's a good method when you approach the language for the first couple of months, but then it becomes too boring because you're not actually improving that much. You're kind of repeating the same things. I really wanted to stop doing that, and I use the apps not that often. And what helped me a lot are the books that I read and Netflix. So these little books are, for example, stories that are known. Wilhelm Tell, Frankenstein, Die Verwandlung, written by Kafka. So they are famous books. So you already know a little bit, the story. It's easier, and they are written for people that are learning the language. I really loved the criminal books. They are about, there's, for example, a murder, and then there's a detective. It's really interesting. And these are...
I'm into that. I'm into stuff like that. That suspenses, drama thrillers, all that, bro. Send it my way. Send me some craziness.
A little bit bigger books with more pages, and the level is higher. And then I switched to the normal books, books that everybody would read. It is not like learning the language, just for fun and for interest. And the books that I read are Gut gegen Nordwind, and then the second book. So there's a sequel. And it was harder, of course, because there were a lot of new words that I didn't know. But when you read a book, you improve your vocabulary and you become really good. Like your level goes from just talking like a child to talking like a professor. Netflix, I really recommend to watch shows that you've already watched and just switch the language.
People were saying that, and that does work. People recommend to me, they're like, have you watched Avatar Last Airbender? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, switch the language to German and turn on English subtitles so you can get used to hearing like something you are familiar with already, but in a different language. And I'm like, interesting. Could do that with anime because I am catching up with a lot of anime as of late. So yeah, for sure, it works.
Watch The Vampire Diaries and Gossip Girl, which I'm still watching in German because I already knew the stories. Just find those shows that are not too complicated, and then you can switch to more complicated shows. For example, I watched Dark.
Oh
Dark
my God, if you can watch Dark in German, bro, you're an expert with the language. I don't care what you're an expert with the language. I tried to watch Dark in German. The story in itself is so thorough, bro. I had to turn on subtitles, had to turn on the subbies, bro. Like, there was no way. Like, a lot of the phrases and the words went over my head because there was just so much going on, and keeping up with the plot lines and stuff like that. That's one of the best shows on Netflix, but I feel like that is like level like C level. That's like a C level language learner and stuff if you're gonna watch something like that.
Such an amazing TV show, but it's really hard.
Yes.
I mean, it talks about philosophy, time travel. It's not easy, you know, but it was really interesting, and I watched it with subtitles. At the beginning, I watched everything with subtitles, and then I removed the subtitles and I could understand everything. And that's the best feeling because you feel like, oh, I'm finally improving because
Yes.
I do understand what's going on. What I also wrote down is use the language in all day situation. So you have to go to a post office, or you have to go there to the bank, and you just have to talk the language and try. Even if people tell you, oh, would you like to talk in English, just avoid that. Just try to use the language unless it's something really difficult and it's important that you understand. But if it's just, you know, at the post office or in the grocery store or the library, just use the language. So in all day situation, at the phone, whatever, I try to speak German, even if I made a lot of mistakes and I sounded terrible and people were making probably fun of me. But you just have to, you know, get out of your comfort zone. So I make mistakes, but at least I can have a conversation with people because at least I try to talk, and I think that people are
Active learning, again, like we mentioned before, like being able to talk with other people and stuff like that, or talk on a daily basis and get comfortable pronouncing the different words and practicing what you've learned and applying it to whatever your little situation is. Even if it's like quiet and to yourself, it helps a lot, you know?
appreciate that. Even if I make mistake, they appreciate the fact that I'm just trying to, you know, have a conversation with them, and I'm not isolating myself and be like, oh, I don't understand you guys, I'm just gonna sit in a corner and cry. Don't do that. So of course you have to use all of the resources that you find on the internet or books or whatever, because guys, there are so many resources and chances and things that you can use today. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, people were struggling to learn a language, and they actually had to use, you know, books to translate the words. And now we have just those apps. You just give a word and in a few seconds you already have the translation. So you don't even have to be that patient. You already have everything. So you're just lazy if you're
True. She's not lying. She's not lying. You have access to all of this unlimited information at your fingertips. So if you can't find it in yourself to do what you got to do to, like, you know, learn that language, you're probably just lazy. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is where we're going to end the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And that's enough internet for today.